Hi guys, in this video today I want to talk about how you can get your ECA or your Educational Credential Assessment. Yes, your Educational Credential Assessment from WES or the World Education Services. Oh my god, so many abbreviations. So guys, I must tell you that this process of getting your ECA is not a fun process, but it is a very important and necessary step if you want to get your PR. One thing that I would tell you is to start this process of getting your ECA as early as possible because it does take a lot of time. Amongst all the various steps that you have to complete for your PR documentation, I would say that getting your ECA is among one of the more complicated ones. But before we start guys, first a big disclaimer as usual, I am not an immigration consultant. All I'm doing in this video is sharing with you my personal experience in the hopes that it could somehow help you. If in your process of applying for a PR you have any doubts or any specific case-specific questions, I would strongly recommend you to make an appointment with an immigration consultant or a lawyer to get their help. And if you want to know my opinion in general, whether or not it's a good idea to get the help of an immigration consultant, then you can check out this video up here. So let's get into it. And first of all, let's take a closer look at this ECA. What is actually an ECA? And for that, as usual, let's go to the government website, which is canada.ca, and simply type in ECA or Educational Credential Assessment. So an ECA is an assessment that you need for express entry, and it is used to verify that your foreign degree or diploma or certificate or any other proof of your credential is valid and equal to a Canadian one. Because without this kind of assessment, how would they possibly know if your degree X, Y, and Z, unless it's from a very well-known university, is equivalent to a Canadian one, right? So if you're applying for PR for express entry, you will need to get an ECA specifically for immigration purposes. So when you apply for ECA, you will need to select the option for immigration. And once you've applied through ECA, and there are various institutions that provide this, and we'll get into that in a second, you will need to provide your ECA reference number in your PR application. Keep in mind that if you have a Canadian degree, certification, or other credential, you will not need this ECA, of course. You will need an ECA if you've completed your education outside of Canada, whether that is the UK or the States. Still, you would need an ECA, and you will need the ECA to be eligible as the principal applicant for the Federal Skilled Workers Program or Express Entry, or to earn points for education you got outside of Canada. So even in our case, we applied through the CEC or the Canadian Experience Class Program. We still needed to get an ECA to prove that our foreign education is equivalent to a Canadian one so that we could get points for it. And while my husband was the principal applicant, I as his dependent also needed to provide proof to provide this ECA so I could also earn points. Now, there are various organizations that will provide this ECA to you, but in this video, I'm going to talk specifically about WES or World Education Services. This is the service that I use to get my ECA. So let's again look at the government website. It says here that you must get your assessment from an organization or a professional body designated by the IRCC or the Immigration, Refugees, Citizenship Canada. They will give you a report that tells you what your education is equal to in Canada. So you cannot just get your foreign education, your diploma degree translated and certified and use that. No, that would not work, because what they're asking for, what immigration is asking for, is not a certified copy of your education, but what they're asking for is proof that your education is actually equivalent to a Canadian diploma degree, etc. Once you choose a designated organization or a professional body, they will tell you how to submit your documents to get your assessment. So the first thing that you would need to do is just choose one of these organizations, and in my case I went with WES, and just follow step by step what they request of you. A very important note on the website is that based on your particular occupation, it might be advisable to go with one of these organizations. So below here it says, choosing a designated organization based on your occupation. If you plan to work for a large employer or in a regulated occupation, you may need to have your assessment done by a specific designated organization. So that would include, among others, the list of occupations down here, for example, physicians, pharmacists, etc. And that's understandable. For these kinds of regulated professions, you will need to have a specific organization that certifies this. So now, if from the immigration immigration website, you click on WES. If you decide to go with WES, it will take you to the website of WES, which looks like this. And the first thing that you would need to do here is simply to provide your email address to kickstart the whole process. Just input your email address, click on next, and fill out the details, and from there WES will tell you step by step what you will need to do. But before we go any further, you might want to have a rough idea what this WES document looks like. What do you get at the end of the whole process? Here on the screen you can see an example of how the ECA issued by WES looks like. So on the top you will have your name, your date of birth, and the date, I think, of when this is issued, and below it says Canadian equivalency summary. So this report will highlight the equivalency of your credential. For example, here bachelor's degree in brackets 4 years, and below that there will be a short credential analysis. It will summarize what your name on the credential is, the method of credential authentication, for example, that your official transcripts were sent directly by the institution to WES, and then the name of the credential, for example here Bachelor of Engineering, the year and who it was awarded by, the name of the university. The status of the university here is a recognized institution, the major, for example, mechanical engineering, and the Canadian equivalency. And in most cases, if you have a bachelor, it will be equivalent to a bachelor's here in Canada. But of course, there are always exceptions. That will depend on a lot of things, like how long your course was, how many hours it was, what kind of courses exactly it included, what kind of test examinations, and so on. And from here, guys, let's go into the step-by-step process, and I will dig into my own experience. But in advance, apologies that there will be some holes in my memory, because honestly, this was quite a while ago. I think it was around 3 years ago that I got this whole thing done. But I'll do my best to recall everything, and in the worst case, I would say that WES does a pretty good job of guiding you through all the steps, and they're also quite responsive in responding to your case-specific questions. So if you have any specific questions, just reach out to them. So now let's continue. Let's first look at the simple high-level process. What happens first? So after you submit your initial application, so that only includes your details of your degree, your name, etc. It does not include the document submission yet. After that, you will get a WES reference number. So each time you want an update on your case, when you log in, you use that reference number. After that, WES will send you a list of document requirements, and this is really country and case specific. So depending on which country you studied in, what kind of degree, what kind of program you did, you will be asked for a different set of documents. Everything that I'm going to tell you in this video about my own experience will pertain specifically to my degree and my studies. So just regard this as an example, because in your case, there might be small details that will be different. And after you send in your documents, what will happen is that WES will take some time to verify your credentials. They will then create a report and deliver it to you and your recipients. So your recipients, for example, is immigration, because you're applying for PR. So I submitted my application, which was very straightforward. I think I spent less than half an hour on it. But at this stage, remember, I was not submitting my documents yet. And from there, WES sent me back this email confirming my degree equivalency. So if you look at this email, oh my gosh, this was in October 2018, such a long time ago. So they sent me back this email titled, "Your free WES degree equivalency. Now that you know what your education is worth in Canada, get a WES credential evaluation." So this is just a preliminary evaluation. So based on the data that I provided in my application, WES said that my degree, which I earned in Germany, which is called a diploma from the University of Mannheim, is equivalent to a bachelor's and master's degree in Canada. So this might be a bit confusing to you, and I won't go into too much detail, but basically I studied in Germany, and back then they still had this degree called a diploma degree, which is in many countries equivalent to a master's degree. It usually takes people 4 or more commonly even 5 or 6 years to complete this program, and Therefore, after looking at the details of the course, they think it's equivalent to a bachelor's and a master's degree combined. But very important note here, it's just a preliminary assessment. Here in the fine print, they say that any degree equivalency provided here in this email is based on the information you have entered. It is not based on verified information or documents and may not be used as proof that you have attended an institution or earned a degree. WES may change this provisional degree equivalency upon document verification and analysis. So initially, WES might get back to you and say that, okay, your degree is equivalent to a master's degree, but then when you send in your documents and they look at the details of the course or they look at the legitimacy of your documents, they might change their assessment. But in any case, still, I think it's a really great way to know in advance what your degree is likely worth in Canada. So in my case, there was actually a second evaluation because I had another degree which is called for diploma in economics, but I won't go into more detail here. So guys, before I continue to the next step, which is the document submission checklist, in case you find this video useful and you like it, please do me a favor and hit the like button. That would let me know that this video was useful to you, and it would also help this video to get out to more people. And also guys, I would really love to hear your questions or your comments, so drop them down below in the comment section and I'll try my best to get back to you. So next, what happened was that WES sent me what's called a document submission checklist. So this email contained a detailed checklist of all the things that I needed to submit in which form and all the details connected to it. And I know guys, at first when you open this document, it's a headache because there are so many things that you need to pay attention to. But believe me, you really need to take care and look at all of these details and make sure that the documents you submit are in line with this, because if they aren't, then you'll just be wasting a lot of time and your money. So let's look at the document requirement checklist and go through it one by one. Please use this checklist as a guide to ensure that the documents meet WES requirements. Documents not received as specified will delay your credential evaluation, and you really do not want that, especially if you want to get your PR as soon as possible. Remember to carefully follow the document requirements for your country of education and use the academic records request form. So, two things about this. The document requirements list for your specific country is listed on the WES website. So go to the WES website and click on your particular country so you know in advance what kind of documents you actually need to submit. And about this request form, I'll get to that in a moment. Let's continue. Before sending your documents, make sure that your transcripts are complete. Transcripts must show all subjects taken, grades received for each subject, and for each year you were in the program. So it's not enough to just give them their diploma, but you need to provide them with all the your detailed transcript. And in case you've applied for a study program here in Canada, then you will know what I'm talking about. Make sure that the academic records include the correct spelling of your name. The WES evaluation will indicate the name and date of birth shown on your academic records. So really make sure that the names on your documents match, and if they don't, then you will need to find a way to get that in order. The next thing is to make sure that all documents that are sent to WES are clear and legible. Yeah, this is pretty clear, but in some cases, so it happens that maybe someone spilled coffee on your document or so on, so you might need to go to your college and university and get a new copy of that. So the next thing is about sending your documents. So it's not that straightforward. You cannot just translate and certify your own documents and send it into WES. It doesn't work that way. So there are 3 points here that are really important. The first thing is that whatever material, whatever documents you send to WES, you must indicate the WES reference number on all of the envelopes. That is really important so your stuff doesn't get lost and they can easily match it to your application. The second thing is that you need to make sure that your transcripts are placed in an envelope that is signed and sealed across the back flap by the institution preparing the document. And for this point here, you need to really work closely with your college or university. And I know that it can be such a pain, especially if it's been ages since you've graduated. If you've just graduated last year, then maybe you can just go back to the university. You still have some connections and ask them to do that. But in my case, I don't know how many years, I lost count. It was over a decade or more ago, so it was quite a hassle to find out who's in charge and who can get this done for me. So in the end, I contacted some someone in the administration in Germany, and then they ping-ponged me to some other departments, and in the end someone was able to help me out. So they got my degree, my diploma, or what you call it, and all the transcripts issued in English, and that was very useful because I didn't need to translate it. So it had, I think, German and English, and they certified it, and according to my instructions, and luckily Germans are very good at following instructions, they placed it in the envelope, they closed the flap, or so I assume, and they put a stamp over it and signed it. And after that, of course, they sent it to WES, and they didn't charge me a penny for that. Number 3 here, it says, send only academic records issued by recognized academic institutions. WES does not evaluate occupational or trade qualifications. I think this is quite clear. Also note that you should not send any personal photocopies of transcripts. This is of no use at all. They will not even look at it. Also, don't send any original documents unless specifically requested by WES. It is rarely the case, I never experienced it ever in my life before, that you need to send in your original document. You will always try to avoid that because you always want to be the one holding your original document. They also say not to send in any documentation regarding non-formal training or work experience. So they don't need all of that. All they need is information documents that directly relate to your degree, which is that diploma and the transcript in most cases. So now let's get back to that academic records request form, which I talked about earlier. Oh my God, such a complicated name. Let's just call it request form to make it simpler. So WES provided me with this form that I could fill out and use to request what I needed to my university in Germany. And I must say it's a useful form, and it made things much easier because instead of going to your university and explaining in length what you need from them, you simply send in this request form and they kind of know what you need. So what I did when I contacted my German university, I just briefly explained to them that I was in process of applying for PR. For that, I needed an ECA, an educational credential assessment, to prove that my degree is equivalent to a Canadian degree. And along with that, I attached this form and they understood what to do with it. Let's just briefly go through this form. So here you basically input your information, including your WES reference number, your name, the name of the institution you studied at, the degree name, and your student ID. Also year of award when you got your degree and your major, and also date attended. And oh my God, I must say that I had a hard time of finding those details. But trust me, anyway, in completing your PR application and submitting all your documents, you will need this information again and again. The specific dates when you started studying and when you graduated. So below this part which you fill out is a section for the authorized officials, which are the people at the administration of your university. So here it says the person named above requests that their academic records be released to WES. His or her record statements of marks should show all subjects completed and all grades marked awarded for all years. Please complete this form. Place this form and academic record in an envelope, sign and seal the envelope across the back flap. So I find this form, this request form, really great because it tells your university what they need to do exactly, and they need to fill out these details here, institution name, blah blah blah, just to confirm again what kind of degree you got, and then sign it, confirm it, and then send it. Okay, so now a bit about my correspondence with my university. So I think that that was the most complicated part, and that's not because the university was not helpful, but I think it's just because it's been a long time and this is kind of a special request, right? So it took me a few weeks, maybe 2 or 3 weeks, to correspond with them and to find the correct person to carry this out. On the 25th of December of that year, 2018, WES confirmed to me that they received all of the documents. And about a month after, on the 19th of January, so if you cut out the holidays, that's roughly 3 weeks, they confirmed to me that my evaluation was completed. And I was glad to see that their final assessment matched with the preliminary assessment, where they acknowledged my diploma degree from Germany to be equivalent to a bachelor's and master's degree in Canada. So they sent me a copy of their assessment, and they also sent a copy of that to immigration. But note that if you want WES to send a copy of that to immigration, you will need to state that at the time of your application. I don't remember where it is exactly, but when you go through the online process, you can select the option that you want a copy to be sent to immigration. And the great thing is also that after they finish the evaluation, they also give you what's called a digital badge of WES. So this is a digital badge that shows that you've been accredited in a way. Guys, for the WES process, I have 2 tips. The first one is that if you are still in your home country and you know that you will need an ECA through WES, for example, for your PR application or for other purposes, then I would strongly recommend to you that you start that process while you're still in your home country, because that's really the easiest way. Instead of sending a million emails back and forth trying to explain what you need to your university, it's much easier to talk to someone in person. It's much easier to explain what you need that way. And my second tip is that if you happen to already be in Canada and you know that you will need this ECA, do not delay it any further. I know it's a big hassle, because I would say that this ECA is one of the required documents in the PR process that might take you the longest. So really don't let this become the bottleneck and start far in advance. So guys, if you're in the process of applying for PR and you roughly know what your CRS score is, but you want to have a rough idea of how you compete to the other people who are also applying at the same time, then check out this video over here where I talk about the PR pool or the rounds of invitation. Thank you so much for watching, guys. I hope you have an awesome day, and I'll see you again next time.